welcome to this evening's, early evening session of promoting positive behaviour and managing challenges with myself. In the next hour, what I'm going to try and do is just to give a very quick refresh of the learning profile associated with Down syndrome. We'll then talk about strategies to promote positive behaviour, think about identifying functions and patterns, and I'll kind of do a bit of a sales pitch on the need for observation, talk about developing a behaviour plan, and then I'm going to focus a little bit on the importance of replacement behaviours, and you'll hear more about those when I get to them. They're almost the most important part, or they are, I think, the most important part of this this presentation. And then finally, I'll talk about managing social mistakes and what to do, including what to do when unwanted behaviours occur. Okay, so I said I would just kind of start with a quick recap of the learning profile. We have some associated strengths, so things that children with Down syndrome do better with than we might expect, given their non-verbal mental age. Their visual short-term memory is a relative strength. They're much better at remembering what they've seen than remembering what they've been told. They often will not be able to remember that information. So really important that we're using lots and lots of visual supports, lots of modelling, lots of cueing of support for memory. Social skills and social understanding are another relative strength for our individuals with Down syndrome. And we are often very good at learning facts and learning that new information, remembering those key kind of bits of information. In terms of difficulties, there are a few difficulties associated specifically with this profile along with Down syndrome. So we have a very high incidence of hearing difficulties, so children struggling with their hearing to hear information. A specific difficulty with verbal short-term memory, so remembering what it is that they've heard and processing that information. So they've got difficulties hearing information, remembering information, following and processing and understanding that information, which you might already think may lead to some behaviour, some unwanted behaviours. Have they heard it all? Can they remember it all? Can they process it all? Because if they haven't got your instructions, they're not going to be able to follow them successfully. Vision is another particular challenge for individuals with Down syndrome, and then speech, language and communication, more delayed than we might expect. It's an uneven profile, often receptive understanding and receptive vocabulary particularly can be a relative strength, but certainly expressive language, speech, and some of those kind of pragmatic communication skills like being able to stay on topic, being able to start a conversation, being able to repair when it goes wrong, being able to say, oh, sorry, I didn't understand what you said, or to be able to say, oh, no, you've misunderstood me. Those are all much more complicated communications, which often involve language. Okay, so just want to have that in our head when we're thinking about behaviour and how we're working with our pupils. So when I'm thinking about managing behaviour, we're thinking about managing evidence-based intervention strategies with the specific challenges associated with Down syndrome, which we've kind of just done a quick refresh of. If you look at the literature, there are some characteristics which may increase the likelihood of some of these unwanted behaviours. So in research, would say that Down syndrome is associated with a desire to escape tasks. Particularly, I would say that's linked into the idea that children are sensitive to failure, don't want to get things wrong. They're very quick to pick up on, yeah, brilliant, well done, versus, oh, no, not quite, have another go. Or I'll do that one again. I'm not so keen on doing that one again. Thank you very much. Also, we know that having Down syndrome means that you're going to have impaired communication skills. So that's speech and language that we've talked about. I'm going to talk about all these three in a little bit more detail in just a second. And this idea that individuals with Down syndrome have enhanced social motivation. They're really keen, which links back into what I said about their social strengths, social skills, social understanding, really keen to be interacting with others and to be getting your attention and getting you to talk to them, which again can have that kind of knock on to be, I'd rather having a chat with you or my friend than getting on with my work, maybe. All of those things can be exacerbated by additional factors such as illness and sleep. We know people with Down syndrome are more prone to infection. Infections often hang around for longer and turn into some nastier things. We all know what it's like when we're not feeling great, or equally if you've not slept very well, again, more sleep issues in children with Down syndrome. So that may well be disturbed sleep, possibly sleep apnea, some issues around behaviour and sleep. And again, if you're tired or you're feeling a bit rubbish, you may not have as much patience as you might do the rest of the time. However, that is not reasons to allow unwanted behaviours to occur. You might just want to be a bit mindful of the structure of your day. I won't be doing my hardest work at the end of the afternoon. Okay, so I'd say a little bit more about each of these kind of factors associated with behaviour. This desire to escape the tasks, as I said, the sensitivity to failure may mean that we actually avoid the task itself. We think that it's too tricky, or we think that we might get it wrong, and so we'd rather not have a go. And that's obviously going to interfere with skill development. We've set up these activities for a reason. We want the children to be learning from them. You may see some cute party tricks. I may come out with asking the same question over and over again, especially, and even if I know the answer, that often will happen. What time's lunch? You know what time lunch is. What time's lunch? 12 o'clock. Yes. So what time's lunch? Get that coming over again. Or might do something they think other people quite like, depending on the age of the child. Sometimes have a little sing of a song. People like it when I sing a song. But try almost kind of diverting attention away from the thing that they've been asked to do. Or you may see, of course, some more challenging behaviour, things like knocking the work to the desk, to the floor, or sliding under the table, for example. There's a question mark around whether children with Down syndrome have a weakness in reading others' emotions. Certainly, we know there can be issues around face recognition, so being able to read your face and read your emotions, to know that you're not pleased, maybe a bit maybe tricky. And then, of course, thinking about sensitive to failure, just thinking about, have they got enough support? Is the task actually too tricky, too challenging for them? Do they need a bit more support, or does it need to be adapted further? So in terms of considerations then, thinking about adjusting the difficulty of the task. Do we need to make it easier? Or the structure of the session itself. Let's start off with a task they're really familiar with, they know that they're really good at, they feel really confident in, to get us engaged and ready to go. Think about errorless learning strategies. So I'm going to, it's no good me asking you the question if you don't know the answer, and me asking it 5 times is not going to help. Actually, it'd be much better for me to do that teaching and to show you. And when I can see that you know what you're doing, then I can reduce some of that support. And the other thing, of course, is sometimes those kind of consequence strategies. So kind of a now and next, or a visual timetable, or a tick list of jobs. We're going to do this task, and then we're going to do something that's a bit more motivating. Can certainly help if that's part of the reason. I would say this is the biggest one: impaired communication systems. So we know the children have difficulties with understanding, so with receptive language delays. So have they understood the instruction they've been given in the first place, and can they remember it? If you say, oh, you're going out to play, but don't go on the field, they may well just hear and remember, go on the field. So actually you've just given them the instruction of the one thing you didn't want them to do. I remember going to a school visit a little while ago now, and I was observing, it was PE, so they were outside and sat on the grass, and the teacher was at the front giving the verbal input about what the lesson was going to be about. And the teaching assistant came and said, oh, look, see, he's not listening. Look. And I said, well, can't. Even if he sits there and listens as hard as he possibly can, he will not be able to take in all of that information. It's just too much. You're relying on the things that he finds true. Oh, look, he's picking the daisies now. Look, stop picking the daisies. Listen, poking the person next to him. So I said, no, he can't follow this. And so at the end of the verbal input, class get up, he takes somebody by the hand and leads them off to the tree, and then gets told off for not doing what he's supposed to be doing, despite the fact I just very clearly explained he had got no idea in terms of this verbal input what he's supposed to be doing. We need to do things a little bit differently. So that's about receptive delays. In terms of expressive difficulties, may have a lack of appropriate responses. So lots of children, as they're growing up, and just continue to do so, do that bargaining. Oh, but can I just, oh, if I just do this, can I just, we might not have the language to be able to do that, or to explain why we're doing some of these things. Actually, what we might have is just a no, or I'm stopping here, or I'm dropping to the floor. And they may be experiencing reduced social interaction. So if you're not great at talking, it can mean that others don't come up and talk to you as much. And that is when, of course, we might find some other ways to get people to come over and talk to us, or turn around and talk to me. If I pull the person's hair in the line in front of me, they turn around and talk to me, and I go, oh, I've just learned a really good way to get people in front of me in the line to turn around and talk to me. Not trying to be difficult or nasty. I just tried it. Oh, there's that nice ponytail. Let me hold on to it. Oh, just turn around and talk to me. Huh. Does that happen every time? Oh, yeah, it does. And so then we've learned a different way of getting that interaction. And then finally, we also have difficulties with speech clarity and intelligibility. So trying to say their message, but not being able to say it clearly and not being understood. And that can lead to frustration. It can also lead to giving up. People aren't understanding me, so I'm just not going to try anymore, which is obviously not what we want. So those are our impaired communication systems. Like I say, when we talk a little bit later on about replacement behaviours, these come up a lot. How we can support this speech and language and communication difficulty that the children have. But to give some highlights, we want to teach requesting and initiating behaviours. How do they ask their friends to play? How do they ask for something? How do they start a conversation? What questions do they know to be able to ask? And it might be teaching them a new phrase, but equally it might be teaching them a gesture to use. If I point to that, other children know they need to name it for me. It might be use of pictures. So I've got my communication cards. I'm going to go over and show them to my friend, and that's going to get them to talk to me. Asking others to play. I've got an example of that to show you in just a second, but I might go over and say to my friend, right, choose a friend. What I'm going to ask Becky, what do I want to play? Oh, I want to play Duck, Duck, Goose, or Tag, or Stuck in the Mud. I need a visual, and then I can take that over and show somebody. And that clearly, even if I'm not clear in my talking, shows what I'm asking. I might need to do a bit of teaching of everybody else. Teaching conversation starters, things like, what did you do at the weekend? Are you going to Brownies? Did you see the Gladiators final, or whatever it might be? Those useful phrases, useful questions. I have a little pot of them on my desk, and I can take one out and then use that to start a conversation with my friend. Teaching to use questions, I've just mentioned. Asking for help is a big one. Do they know how to ask for help? Put my hand up and say, help please, when I get stuck. And we might need to do quite a bit of teaching around that. Once you've chosen, oh, actually, I don't think the people I work with does do that very often. I might need to set up a, when I'm not sure what to do, when I need something, I ask for help. So, oh, hang on, we're sitting down to do our work. You haven't got a book. What are you going to say? Oh, help, please. Brilliant. I'm going to do a teaching of that. Thinking about teaching useful vocabulary and phrases. Things like no, or stop, or I'm finished, can be really, really useful if they know how to communicate those things. Even if you say, oh, hang on, you've got 2 more to do, but they've communicated they want to get this to the end of this. I'm cross, I'm worried, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm thinking about teaching as the children move through into juniors, how they're able to communicate that. And again, might not be through language, might be with those picture cards, might be with some visual symbols. We want to be thinking about prompting more appropriate responses, thinking about where the child is now, what's the next kind of goal, where are we going next, what's going to be a useful new target. Want to think about, when we look at behaviour in a second and when these things occur, if you know there's a pattern in the behaviour, you know every time after break they come in and that's when they go over and push somebody or pull their hair or what have you. We need to be thinking about, right, what is it I want you to do when you go into the classroom? As you go into the classroom, next to the door are some communication pictures. Your new skill is to pick those up, take them in and show them to a friend. And I'm going to make sure we initiate that at the door before you go in, because I know it happens every time. We obviously want to reduce request and attention through the use of that kind of unwanted behaviour. But we have got to give them something else to do instead. That's the big message. That's the replacement behaviour. So we need conversation supports. And I would say for all children, for all individuals with Down syndrome, whether you've got any kind of unwanted behaviour or not, we need conversation supports. That's the biggest help that you could give. So there's some examples there. Got just a vocabulary map that you can have on the desk, but I know how to use that. I know how to point to it. I know how to name things on it and share it with my friend. That's an example of a communication support. How do I get that person's attention next to me? There's an example of a younger child's conversation diary. So that's a book that they bring into school about things that they've done. And then they can show that they have that somewhere accessible. They know how to get it and they know how to use it. So I take it over to my friends and I share it with them. They may need some help learning some of these things, but that's the aim. You can put in, or they can put in, depending on the age stage of the child, some news to then take home from school. So they take that conversation book around with them. On the slightly older version, similar thing. So I've got some news, got some choice words to go in there, got some answers to questions that people might ask, and then that's an example of a conversation diary from a young lad I haven't seen for a while. But he was a football fan and he went to the home games, and so his friends are interested in football. So he would go in with his news and the scores and find out, and he's also got some questions on there that he could then read and ask them to continue that conversation a bit more. Okay, so what we know is that individuals with Down syndrome have this kind of typically have this enhanced social motivation. They're really interested in interacting with others, want to be part of that kind of interaction. And from very young, they may try to opt out of tasks in favour of social interaction. When I used to do preschool groups, I'd get out my cause and effect toys for them to work on, or my fine motor, turning the different buttons and switches and what have you. And then the parents would sit around at the beginning, and the children weren't interested in those toys at all. They're interested in other parents, their parents, and other children who are there. Much more interested in that kind of social interaction and some of that problem solving. And again, that may well lead to those sorts of behaviours we saw when we're thinking about avoiding the task. This might not be about just not being worried about the task. This might just be about, well, you've got your task, but I'd rather be interacting with others. So diverting attention, asking those questions, doing those kind of party tricks, some more negative behaviours, or those we might see as negative. And they may actually then start to serve the purpose. As I said about the example of the pulling the child's hair in front, I may, for the first time, accidentally knock my pencil pencil pot on the floor. Oh, look, everybody turned around and looked at me, and somebody came over and told me, oh, be careful, and somebody talked to me, and then I said, oh, yeah, tied it up. Does that happen every time I knock my pencil pot on the floor? Oh, yes, it does. So I've just now learnt a strategy it's not necessarily a negative one in terms of I found a very successful way of getting people to come and talk to me, but it certainly won't be the one that we are looking for. Or seeking alternative positive attention. Oh, I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to do something that you really like. Often the children may try and jump up to do jobs because that gets people to say, oh, well, brilliant, no, thanks for doing that job, say, those sorts of things. And these behaviours may emerge at a young age and be maintained throughout childhood if not addressed. Certainly by the time we're getting into school, we may well see some of these behaviours have started, and if not managed, may not have gone away. And behaviour is the biggest barrier to inclusion. I have some of my most able children, if their behaviour is disrupting the learning of others, that's when we're looking at placement being in jeopardy. So it's a big one that we want to get right, and right for everybody. So thinking about that communication I talked about, have a think about how you support interaction with peers. We start off thinking about break or lunchtime. You know, we know that they're kind of those social opportunities, and we often think of them as being easy times or go out and have a break. But if you're not great at speech, language and communication, those times can be really, really difficult. They also involve limited structure often. And so I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. I'm not sure what I can do. Do I know my days of the week? Do I know if I'm allowed on the equipment today or I'm not allowed on the equipment today? One way to find out, I'll go and try and get on the equipment today. Also, so it's also can be the time that the child doesn't have as much adult support. So it may be that they don't have additional one-to-one or additional adult available during those break and lunch times, and I've got lack of structure, and we might need to have a look at if that's working or not working. What we need is a bit more structure. That really is the answer. So providing equipment, things like having basketballs out there, or having some hoops to roll backwards and forwards, or some bean bags and buckets, or anything really that we teach the child what to do with, and then provide some way of interacting with my friends. Might be laminated sheet of insects and some magnifying glasses and a whiteboard pen, and I can go with my friend, can go, oh, take that over to Becky, show her. She knows, does that mean do I want to do go and find some insects, and we can go around lifting up rocks and looking under pots and see if we can tick off an insect together. Oh, look, found a woodlouse or whatever it might be. So we're really looking for equipment or of games that rely less on language, certainly are within the child's range of language that they can use. It's important to teach playground games, and as the child moves through school, think about how those games change, and that we give them the opportunity to learn these new games. I was involved in a game of tag the other week, and stuck in the mud. I don't know anybody knew the rules of stuck in the mud, so we could do a little bit of work about who can tag and who can't tag, and how that game works. Taking out those communication supports that I mentioned. If you've got those, it's a great time to take out my conversation diary, and I can go around and show it to my friends, or my superhero cards. Or I'll tell you another good example is things like a magazine that everybody, age appropriate, so others are interested in it. We can have a look through it together, point some of the things, talk about some of the things as we go. Role play and acting out. What sort of games do they play, and can you practice some of those so that we know what they are, and again, what's kind of appropriate for that age group? You may want to look at developing a circle of friends. That's really some children that that the peer plays, our individual with Down syndrome plays with quite a lot, or is interested in, and they're interested in playing with them. And they're the sorts of children that we might do a little bit of work with around what communication supports that they've got. They might know about, there's a poster on the wall where we go over and we can look at and choose what we want to play, and they'll direct to go over to that and to make that kind of decision. They know where the equipment is, they can get that out. Include more than one child in an activity. I think that's always a good one. But I'll often say, so if I go out at break time on a school visit and they might say, play tag, I'll say, well, yeah, but who are you going to ask? Oh, no, just playing you and me. And sometimes the children are used to a high level of adult support. That can be how it starts to look. So I'm always thinking about, oh, you've got to ask at least one other, so we get that kind of interaction, friendship, play going. And just about making activities fun. I mean, that's what generally happens if I go out to play. I'll set up a game and then other children come and ask to join us, and I say, oh, you'll have to ask the people that I've gone to see, and they might say no. I say, can't say no. You have to say, yes, come play with us, but I want to practice that. Can I play? Yes, you can do it in the game. And then everybody's just playing a fun game. It's not it works for everybody, which I think is important. Over time. And then I've got just a slide there on supporting interaction with peers in the classroom. So I've talked about kind of when we're out doing that social time, but there's obviously lots of social interaction that goes on within the classroom. And we want to be making sure that we are supporting that for our pupil with Down syndrome as well. What I haven't put on there actually is positioning, being sat next to a peer, which for lots of people out there, I hope sounds really obvious, but making sure that they're not just sat next to an adult, they need to be sat alongside a peer if they're going to have that kind of peer interaction talking. Might benefit from some question prompts. I talked about some examples for just general, how was your weekend? Got a particular friend, it might be how's your dog or cat or whatever. But then you might have some question prompts about the lesson. I'm going to go, once you've done a few sentences, we're going to go and ask so-and-so for an idea, or ask what their thoughts are on the particular topic that we're doing. So giving them questions to ask others, particularly if you've got a reader, that can be a good one. Having some interest or topic cards. So you've got some topic cards on the lesson, just like your conversation cards, which I can talk about. Oh, look, this is a, I don't know, river or pyramid or volcano or the Titanic, whatever it is that I can show and talk to my friends about. Now, you may have some of those resources that you think, oh, get those out for listening time, carpet time. So we've got an extra picture of those resources. They're great to have, and to teach the child how to use those to support that interaction about the lesson. Having a vocabulary board, had an example previously, can't remember what it was, I think it was space. But again, that's my vocabulary board on the desk. I use that in my writing. I'll have to look up the words, know how to spell them. I also know how to use that as a communication tool to ask other people about. I might even be able to show them how to spell a word. Yeah, you want to spell astronaut? Right, it's down here. Doing a social survey, going around and asking friends a couple of questions. It could be about the topic, could be about which idea they've chosen. But again, it gives me that bit of structure within it. Showing their work and looking at others' work is a really nice way of supporting that interaction. Right, you've done a bit of writing. Why don't you go and show whoever, have a look at theirs, come back and we'll do a bit more. Did you get any ideas from them? What are they writing about? Fab, lovely. And it's about them having that responsibility. You know, we want them to be able to use these different strategies, these different resources, without having the adult there. So of course you will have to teach them to start with, but the idea being that you're then able to step back and they know how to use those across a range of different activities and settings. So in terms of then thinking about behaviour, we need to think about the function. So behaviours always serve a function. We might not necessarily know what it is or be able to identify it easily, but there will be a reason there, and we need to look out for why they are happening. And that's really important when we think about our replacement behaviour, because if we know why it's happening, we can replace that with something that's going to get the same function, does the same function, but in a positive way. Consequences will often lead to a reduction or an increase in the behaviour. Whatever happens just after the behaviour will have an impact on whether it happens again or not. We haven't taught them something else to do, may still not go away, but certainly when you get a new kind of behaviour, we want to be thinking about how we are responding or not responding, thinking about knocking our pencil case, pencil tin on the floor, making a big clatter, and everybody goes, that's going to encourage it to happen again. What we want to do is not to do that. Not all behaviours are going to go on to be problematic. You might just have one, and everybody needs to not panic about it. But I think it's important to have those kind of positive strategies in place, ready to go. And you may need to do some observation and record keeping. I'm a big fan of observation. I know everybody in school is very busy, and it can be hard to find some time. But when we're thinking about stepping back, that's a really good use of that adult time to be then spending some time observing them, observing how they're interacting with everybody else, and keeping that kind of ABC chart. These are just some examples, real examples from observations in schools. So child may just be looking with interest at two people talking. So I can quite clearly see they want to be involved in the chat, but they're not able to initiate that for themselves, and the other pair have not offered the opportunity to join. So I then maybe want to think about what I'm going to do, introduce new visuals, carry a visual about something they've done with some related questions. Brilliant. And I've got a way to go into those conversations. Take something from a peer. Peer complains, says sorry, and returns it. Peer responds. And that was actually from secondary school. And I turned up for my visit, and they said, "Oh, Becky, he's stealing. I've got problems now, it's really stealing." I was like, okay. But when I watched, that's what happened. He took something from a friend. The first person said, "Hey, that's my book, pen, whatever it was, rubber." He gave it. I said, "Oh, sorry." And they said, "No, it's all right." I mean, what's he doing? He's having a chat. So much so that the next person, he took their thing and they didn't see. And he actually then turned around and went, "I've got your pen. You've missed your chance to have a chat with me." And then they say, "Hey, can you give my pen back?" Blah, 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 blah. So it's all about conversation. What we need, some question cards for when he comes into lesson. What can I ask my friends as I come in? And then they respond about. Break time. Student sits with their friends and gets out their joke cards. Really successful, engaging. We all have a few. And we go around and tell each other jokes, and it all worked really, really nice. That was a secondary school example. Nothing else was needed. They'd put those in place. But I have to say, that was a school that I'd gone back to and back to and back to. And I'd said, you need to get your adults out. Your adults just sat one-to-one talking to the child. I often see that in secondary schools, particularly actually. Adults are around at those sorts of times, and then they sit down at the table with the peers, and they then lead the conversation, and all of the lovely stuff that could be going on gets a little bit sabotaged. And this school particularly, I'd said, needs to be with their peers, needs to be with their peers, needs to be with their peers. I'm just still talking to the adult. And finally, I went back and they'd put in those joke cards and had been able to step back. And I said, "Oh, brilliant. What made the difference?" She said, "We took the adult away." I was like, "Oh, there we go." So often, of course, pupils are going to need additional support, but it's really important we look at how we're using that additional support and if it's successful or not. And then I've just put on the bottom there, takes themselves off and sits alone. Now, I think that's another thing, just to kind of to remind me to say that it is also, if it's break time, it is a chance to have a break. And they might, if they've worked really hard all lesson, they might just need to have a bit of a break. So it's not about making them interact with friends all the time, but it is about making sure that they've got the opportunities and the skills or the supports in place to be able to make the most of those opportunities. So I've got a couple of ABC charts just to share with you as some examples. This one is from a pupil who was in year 2 that I went to visit. So she was sitting well when I arrived during the French lesson. She was sat next to a partner. It was a good setup actually. There was adult support was well away. She was sat next to her partner, and they had words in English and French, and there were months of the year that they had to support. And the activity was each one of the pair chose a card. They saw if they matched. And if they did, then they said, "Oh, they're a pair," and they put them to one side. But as I was watching, what happened was, so her partner chooses a word and then asks the child I'd gone to see to choose a word from her column, which she does. Partner says, "They're the same." Child I've gone to see says, "No, they're not." She said, "Yes, they are. They're a pair. You need to put them over here." And the child didn't want to give it up. She was like, "No, they're not." She said, "Yes, they are. They're, I don't know, January, whatever it was." And so eventually what happened, so I'm not being listened to, and she took the pair and she put her card under her bottom. sat on it. You're not having that one. But the TA comes over and says they are a pair, takes the card and gives it to the partner and tells them to choose another word. Exactly the same thing happens again. What's happening? They're not the same. They're out. When you look at them, they may mean the same month, but those cards are not the same. She's quite right. And she's not understood the task, really. And what we did was we just put coloured corresponding dots. So you were looking for the same coloured dot. So January had red and February had blue and so on. And then all worked perfectly well. But without doing that bit of observation, it would be hard to know what really was happening there. This one's from a pupil in year 6. Oh, so he was set up visually with RE. It was an art task. He was doing some painting. He's given clear instructions written on a board, so he knew exactly what it was he needed to do. He had a visual for 10 ticks required on his visual. And you can see that, and you can see, I'll keep going, oh, brilliant work there, give me a tick. I'm checking back in with him to see how he's getting on. So every so often I'm dropping back in, prompting him, praising him, reminding him of the thing he's supposed to be doing, and doing a bit of reinforcing. So he's got 3 ticks on his board for copying clear instructions, asking a peer for ideas and completing the sketch and putting his hand up. He then, he's hard at work with his painting when his TAO comes over and says, how are you getting on? Oh, that's too much water on there. You need to use this to get off the water, and then starts dabbing at his picture and taking over, at which point the child swears at him. So the TA raises his voice and says, no, we don't say that. The child swears again, and a few nearby children laugh. So hang on a minute, this is now we're going to manage behaviour, remember, going in with the positives and the rewards. He's doing the greatest job he can do of his art. We want to reward that, praise that. If you want to give him some helpful strategies, that's not the way to do it, but you could model alongside. You could say this is what you could do if you think there's too much water, blah, 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 handled very differently. But he continues his painting, he looks around and his peers are all painting and chatting. He looks over at the boy sat near him, watches for a while. What's he want to do? He wants to interact with him. What does he just learn? Makes his friends laugh. Swears again. So the boy smiles back, a bit of reinforcing of that behaviour that we're not all that keen on. And then in goes the TA again. So we can quite clearly see he needs some way of communicating with my friends. I've got a great way. I've just picked up here. We need to give him some RE pictures or some art pictures or some whatever it's going to be, some questions to support him interacting with his friends. Okay, so when I've got some kind of unwanted behaviour, the first thing I ask either parents or the education staff to do is to develop a behaviour plan. And when I do a behaviour plan, these are all the things I would have in the behaviour plan. So at the top, I'd have the one behaviour that you want to change. And I say to people, one behaviour plan. Now, there may be some overlap on these behaviour plans, but we need to look at the function of one behaviour. And it's important to start with one, and then we can look at others. They always send me 4 on the same one, but that's a different matter. The behaviour I need to change. Number 2, are there any patterns? Now, sometimes people will say, no, it comes out of nowhere. And that's when we're going to go and do our ABC logs, because chances are it doesn't come out of nowhere, but it can be difficult to see it if you haven't had some time to observe it and you haven't spent some time logging it to really see some of those patterns. Number 3, can you prevent the behaviour? Is there something that you can do that's just going to stop it from happening? I'll move that pen pot so it sits somewhere else. Yeah, done. And sometimes you can, sometimes that's not possible. And then my question is, what is your replacement behaviour? So if we're going to stop this behaviour, we need to have something else that we're going to teach to do instead. That's the thing I think often gets missed. We think we want to manage behaviour when it happens and we want to reduce it, but we still need to give them something else to do instead, or they've just got that one thing that they've learned to go back to. And once we've chosen that, it's then all about teaching that replacement behaviour. So we see that then become part of their skills, I guess, skill set. Then we have the bit everybody really wants. What are you going to do when unwanted behaviour occurs? And then I say, how are you going to ensure everyone is on board? Because we need everybody to be consistent. And how are you going to measure success. So have a look at these kind of bits. First is about identifying those patterns when people say, "Oh, I'm not sure, I don't think there are." Some of the common patterns we see is listening input carpet times. And I said that right at the beginning. Can't listen, I can't remember, I can't process all that information. So if you don't give me any kind of support at that time, you are just asking me to sit there. That's it. I'm just waiting for this to be over. And that's often when we see some of these behaviours. Unstructured times, I mentioned, break times, lunch times, transition times between activities. Afternoons, people always say, "Oh, they're so tired in the afternoon." I think, well, if we have a look at what they did in the morning, too much support, too much adult support and talking means they're exhausted. We could change the structure of the morning a bit, and we would that might change. Is it particular people that they do it, that they're great for the TA at the beginning of the week, or they're great for the class teacher, but there's this person that doesn't seem to be having any success? And that's not about identifying people who what can I say, you need a bit more training maybe. It's not about going, "Well, you're obviously not right for this role," although sometimes that might be the case. But we also want to be thinking about, what are they doing differently, or what are the people who are being successful doing differently? Is there a need for staff training, so we make sure that everybody is being consistent? And is there need for peer education? It might be it's always with the same particular child, and again, might need to look at circle of friends with that child or not with that child, depends. Is there a particular need not being met? Often it's a communication need, as I've said. And the other thing about when you're thinking about the patterns is when it doesn't happen. Because if we know when it's not happening, there may be some really key information about what's successfully happening at those times that mean it's not happening, that we can bring over into these times when it is. So can we prevent the behaviour? For example, avoid the place, the person, the situation. Other strategies to help prevent the behaviour: prepare and teach new environments. Often we don't spend enough time teaching or preparing the child for what it is we want them to do. So you're going on a school trip, brilliant. What are you going to do on the bus? We need to give them something to be able to do on the bus. Otherwise, what's likely to happen is they go, "Well, I've got nothing to do here. I know, I'll come up with something like standing up." Oh, that get everybody's attention, and now, because we didn't prepare them properly, that's not been successful. Avoid telling them what you don't want them to do. A bit like my example earlier on about don't play on the field. They will hear and remember you are reminding them of the thing that you don't want. So we kind of have a never talk about unwanted behaviour policy. Consider the language that you use. Clear difference between telling and asking. We're not asking the child, do they want to read their book, or do they want to do their writing, or do they want to go to the toilet? If the time to do it is now, we are telling them the time to do it is now, and then we're asking them, giving them some choice around things like motivators. I'm telling them what's happening, offer the choice. On here about avoiding social mistakes, so knowing what to do, those really clear instructions, as I mentioned. Another classic one is school swimming, and the teacher will, of course, do a bit of input for the whole class about school swimming, but did we hear it? Did we remember it? Did we process it for all that information, or did we just hear swimming? And I'm brilliant at swimming. I go every weekend with my dad. I get out of the pool, I jump into the pool, I come out of the pool, jump into the pool, I throw my toys, I go underwater, I splash my dad. It's brilliant. Swimming? Oh, great. I know exactly what that's going to look like. That's not what school swimming looks like. But if we don't teach them in advance, prepare them, that may well be the sorts of things that you are going to see. So knowing the class rules and expectations, having a visual timetable, a planner of what I'm expected to do, and if needed, those motivators and rewards. Having a personal book or social story that tells you this is what a school trip or swimming or new class is going to look like. I've put that on there, that's all good. Planning inclusion in all school activities, so lunchtime clubs, after school clubs, school trips and school holidays, making sure they have access and are included in all of those. They might not want to go to lunchtime club if they don't know what it is. It's important that we make sure, take some photos, do a bit of a social story, go along, and so they do know what it is that they're being offered. So within the classroom, I've got clear independent tasks, including those what we call soft tasks. So where the adult steps back and the individual spends a bit of time just working within their kind of comfort zone, if you like. So it might be drawing or colouring a picture. It might be doing some handwriting type, depending on the individual. But it's something where we're not being talked at and being worked really, really hard to our maximum all the time. Having responsibilities and helping others, jobs within the class that I know how to do, going around and giving out a few of the books. That's a great conversation opportunity. Here you go. There's yours. That's a nice book. Encourage watching others and sharing ideas. What's everybody else doing? What do you think you should be doing, rather than stepping in and telling them what they should be doing? Having lists of jobs and equipment, so they know when I leave input time, I get to my desk, it tells me what it is I need to do, or shows me on the pictures what it is I need to get out. Having written instructions as we get to, as our reading develops, look back at them, go over them again and again. I've got to remember. Right, replacement behaviour, need to replace the unwanted behaviour with a wanted one. So you've got to give them something alternative and preferably not related. They won't just sit with nothing. Don't hit your knock your pen pot over. I'm sat here, I've got nothing but that pen pot. It will go. And similarly, I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about gentle hands, or not talk about gentle hands, the behaviour that I don't want to see. If you've got somebody who's a hair puller or a grabber or a pincher or a hitter, I would avoid doing it, your replacement behaviour being anything to do with hands or getting into close contact, because it's only going to go one way. Similarly, I would also think about what you want your replacement to be is something suitable for the situation, and we don't tend to go around stroking each other. So get rid of those hands. Replacement behaviour is for the pupil. So adults may well be going to do something different, but this behaviour is what we want the child to do. It needs to be really specific. So I don't want to see express they don't want to. How are they going to? Are they going to show a picture? Have they got an action? Have they got a particular word or phrase? That needs to be in there, because if everybody's going to be consistent, we need to know what it is. And then we need to spend some time teaching it. Social stories are great. Videos are great. Role play is great, getting somebody to act it out, either them or a peer, and they can watch it back and visually going in. Brilliant. If you have a time when that unwanted behaviour does occur, first response I would normally say is do whatever you normally do in school, or if it's a parent at home. But if that doesn't work, this would be what I would recommend. So as I've said, very socially motivated. We learn these strategies that get us attention. You don't want to give it attention. You don't want to teach them, this is what gets me to talk to you, or gets your attention from others. So when it happens, you may even turn away slightly, but you're certainly not making eye contact, and you're not talking to them. Doesn't get my interaction. You praise others or yourself if needed for the appropriate behaviour. That's where my attention goes. That's what gets my focus, that great thing that you're doing there. And then you offer them to have a go at doing that as quickly as possible. And if they do, brilliant. Oh, you are fantastic at writing. Well done. You can have one of my special stickers as well. Whatever. If they refuse, you go back to responding and rewarding others, or I'm doing my writing. No, brilliant. The amount of things I've done and had stickers for. And you give them the opportunity to come back 2 or 3 times and then move on. So they're learning that didn't get me that interaction that it has done in the past. Additional strategies I've just popped on there. Avoid that discussion, as I've talked about. Consider saying sorry. I mean, that's, I would say, one of those things that you've probably already done and put in place. What happens is that you say, either go, you have to say sorry, and they go, sorry, 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 sorry. Or they go, no, you will say sorry. No, I won't. And now I've got you stuck here talking, and the child here stuck here talking, and they've got all the attention and focus on me. I normally say, are we worried about saying sorry, or are we worried about stopping the behaviour? I think parents would be happier if their child came home not with their hair pulled 3 times versus hair pulled and said sorry to 3 times. Give clear, short instructions and or offer a choice. Make sure that you're using language that is accessible. And if you can offer a choice, it's really, really powerful. You're going to do some writing. Do you want to use this pen or this pen? Great. You've got a turn in conversation now as well, which is good. And a bit of control. Brilliant. But you are doing some writing. No choice about that. Follow through and be consistent. They're very good at knowing who is consistent and who isn't. Use tone of voice and facial expression that match what you're saying. So if they're doing something you don't want, saying, oh, you're a bit cheeky monkey, that makes me go, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. I know that's not what we want. I want to be really clear. And have a look at your school system. It may well need some adaptation. Need to build in some visuals, maybe till you get your dojo, get 3 ticks or 3 stamps or whatever, and then you get a house point. Measuring success is obviously important, and that's where it comes in with our ABC log. We want to record the frequency, the pattern of the unwanted behaviour, but also you want to be recording your replacement behaviour. Are you seeing an increase in that thing we've chosen that's going to be the new skill that we're learning? Because if we're not seeing an increase on that, that's not embedded yet, that's not working, and we're not likely to see a decrease in that unwanted behaviour. I've put on there about the bad news book or end of the day meet. Behaviour should be dealt with at the time. If you are sharing that with parents, and it may be important that you do, think about why you're sharing it and what you want them to do about it. If it was dealt with there and then, I wouldn't be revisiting it again at 3:30. So 3:30, oh, look, you shouldn't kick somebody. What's about to happen? I've just mentioned that one thing I don't want you to do. It's about to go and kick somebody. So, and if you are doing that, I would also be recording in there the positives, because kicking people 7 times takes about less than a minute. What happened for the rest of the day and that replacement behaviour. Avoid discussion in front of others for parents. You see people coming across the playground, think, oh no, not me, what have you done now? And avoid discussion in front of the people, because we're just going to remind them. So if you are sharing, be very clear with parents what you want them to do with that information. And I will be very clear that you don't want them talking to the child about it. You don't want them saying first thing in the morning, or when you go into school, and remember today, don't kick anybody, because what's the first thing they're going to do? Kick somebody. Right, I haven't left very long for questions, sorry. So just to summarise, children with Down syndrome typically want to interact just like all children, but speech, language and communication difficulties make this more challenging. So we've got to teach, model, praise and reinforce all the positives. We don't spend enough time teaching all those positives and new skills. Coming up to getting ready for the transition to the new year, starting to think, oh, summer term, you're going to be in year 4 next year. This is what year 4 pupils are like. Let's get ready and be a year 4 pupil. Let's teach you some new expectations. And we draw attention from any unwanted behaviour and prioritise communication support. So we have more communication supports, we'd be a lot more successful. Just to say, we have 2 online programs that you might be interested in. We have our primary education program, which normally you sign up for the year and you have access to CPD training, resources, online drop-in sessions. We are actually doing a 1 term as well at the moment, just in case anybody's off to change school in September. And the other program is our individual behaviour support service for primary schools. If you think, oh, this session's been helpful, hopefully you've got some things to go off and be working on. But if you find yourselves struggling, then that service is there.